Good morning, students. Today we are going to start our second lesson on statistics. And today's lesson is on exercise 14.1. In this exercise, we are going to discuss two sums and their solutions. So the first sum is give 5 examples of data that you can collect from your day-to-day life. So you have to give 5 examples of the data that you can collect. The answers are, it can be any answers, but I have selected these 5. Number 1, the weight of a student of your class or of our class. That means the class that you read in that class, the weight of the students. This data you can collect. The number of plants in your locality, number of boys and girls in your classroom, number of runs scored by Sachin Tendulkar in a certain match or in whole of his cricketing career, rainfall in our city in the last 10 years. So the amount of the rainfall that has occurred in each year and consecutively such 10 years, you can give this answer as well. Those were the 5 data that you can collect from your day-to-day life. Now question number 2 of exercise 14.1. Classify the data in question number 1 above as primary or secondary data. Yesterday, while introducing this chapter, we have discussed about primary data and secondary data. Primary data is the data that can be collected by yourself. That is, you are the first-hand expertise that is going to collect the data. Whereas secondary data is the data that been collected by a third party and you are utilizing the data in your survey. So primary data is the data collected by yourself, and secondary data is the information gathered from another source, that is via third party. So the 5 examples that we have taken in answer 1 of that is the day-to-day life, the data that we can collect, those data you have to classify them as primary data, that is the data collected by you, or secondary data, that is the data collected by a third party. So the first answer was weight of students in our class. That means in your class you can be the one who is going to collect the data for this survey. So it is a primary data. Number 2, the number of plants in your locality. So in your locality, your individual locality, you can collect the data of number of plants that is present in your locality. So it is also a primary data. Next, number of boys and girls in your classroom. So as it is the classroom belongs to you, then the number of boys and the number of girls present in the classroom can be, this data can be collected by yourself, so it is primary data. But if you mention that the number of boys and number of girls in so and so class, which class you are not present, then that can be secondary data. Or number of boys and number of girls in your school can also be a primary data because the data is of your school. Whereas if you use number of boys and number of girls in another school, then it can be a secondary data. Depending upon the situation and the place, the data varies. That is whether it is primary data or secondary data. Number of runs scored by Sachin Tendulkar. So number of runs scored by Sachin Tendulkar is a secondary data, as the if we consider the whole tenure of his cricketing career, then the scores are kept by someone else and you are going to use that score in your survey. So the data is being collected from a long before, and the data is not collected by you, it is collected by a third party. So it is a secondary data. Then lastly, we have mentioned that rainfall in our city in the last 10 years. So in the last 10 years, the data that is collected is a secondary data, as the data is not collected by you. Last 10 years is the data collected by someone else or a third party. So this is a secondary data. So in this question, the 5 answers that we have selected, the first 3 answer is of primary data and the last 2 is of secondary data. So these were the 2 sums of this exercise 14.1, sum number 1 and sum number 2. I hope this short tutorial is helpful for you to understand. Thank you.